Yeah, good evening, everybody. At the outset, I thank Trichy Euro Education Foundation, particularly Vikram, Karthikeyan, and Govindarajan and all team, because I visited a few weeks back to Trichy, and three things I learned are: one is supine PCNL, they are doing so ECIRS, and second thing, they are doing a lot of RIRS under spinal anesthesia, and third thing is they use no irrigation, and fourth thing very important is practicing together, happily relaxing in the weekends. Those who are practicing, they are practicing, others are relaxing. These 3 4 points I learned. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. Dear viewers, I am using a different system here. I am using my cell phone only for showing the presentation as well as the videos, because if you use the cell phone, videos can come without interruption. So with this, Rajendra, please come and focus. On back of me, he will project the screen. I will take 10 to 12 minutes. I am the last speaker. Uh, Definitely, I will not have time bound, but I will try to restrict. Now, introduction, my topic is pediatric stone disease. As you all know, RIRS was 10 years now, 12 years, 15 years it is in practice. Slowly, after doing 3,000, 4,000 cases, we started using pediatric cases. Basically, you have to see that small penis, small urethra is the consideration. Why? Because if you do in a 12 years or if you do in 12 years or 14 years boy or girl, it is the same. All you have to think is 1 year, 2 years babies. Can we do it or not? That is my focus of the talk. And at the same time, less than 20 kg or less than 5 years. All the cases which are showing are of that age. Naturally, metabolic workup is the only thing. It is a theory. This slide you keep on your table. After the surgery, after the stent removal, you do this. You cannot mug it up. And this is again theory. You remember that in children, potassium citrate is more commonly long-term used. Number two, allopurinol also we are using. Number three, very important point is we are using hydrochlorothiazide also. What the theory we read, it is more useful in children. Now coming to the detailed analysis, depending on the analysis, you choose these three: potassium citrate, allopurinol, and thiazide. This is theory. Technical aspect. Most important is, can you insert the sheath in a 1-year boy? Usually answer is no, because you will damage the urethra. But if it is accommodable, if you put one small feeding tube before the day, smaller access sheath can be easily inserted, larger access sheath also can be inserted. But the major point is, ureter behaves better than urethra in children. Ureter behaves better than urethra in children. So urethra is a major consideration. So ureter is not a problem. Post-tented ureters are very, very good. Now double guide wires, general anesthesia, you can't use spinal anesthesia like Vikram's crazy point, because in children less than 5 years, spinal is contraindicated. Pediatrician, pediatric anesthetist, nephrologist, pediatric ventilator, essential. This is a normal caliber of urethra. Urethra won't become 1 French in 1-year child. It is also 8 French. Don't forget that it does not become 1 French. In adults, it may be 14, 18 French, but it is still 8 French in children. If you put small dilator in the submeatal region, you can nicely pass the access sheath. Bladder volume standard, when you do MCUG, you calculate this. Remember that within 5 minutes, bladder will fill. Not even 5 minutes if you don't use access sheath. So you have to empty the bladder. How will you empty the bladder? You put a suprapubic intracath and aspirate. I will show that. Normal caliber of the ureter. See, it is 7 intravesical length is 7 mm in a small child. That means small length. Everything is small. The moment you enter, you will enter bladder. The moment you enter into the ureter, you will be into the pelvis. So you have to be careful. You can't be rough. Small sheath is important. Lot of people do not use access sheath. No ureteral dilatation. Only stenting. Pressures in children rise rapidly, and intracalyceal perforation is more common. And if you use access sheath, pressures will be low, no doubt about it. So complication is because of the small ureter, ureteric perforation stricture is more common than adults, nearly 1%. These are not commonly seen. Ureteric injury. Then we have done around 57 children, less than around 5 years, and we are operating time is around 1 hour, and stone free rate is 80% only, and fever is seen in 12, and relook is done in majority of the patients. After relook, it is good. The problem is you have to put a stent, you have to go inside, you have to do relook, you have to do stent removal. Painful, but the truth. You have to accept the truth. You can't escape. ESWL is the first choice. If you don't have ESWL of that child fitting into the line, then only you should go for RIRS or PCNL. Somebody who is good in puncture, they can go for PCNL. Somebody who is good in ESWL, fair enough. But we are good in RIRS, so we are doing it. This is the way you aspirate the bladder while doing the procedure. Respiratory parameters, anesthetist challenge. You can't say that stop respiration. You can't say that give respiration. You can't say that slow respiration. It is all difficult. Ventilator is the most important. You have to buy a ventilator where pressure volume related ventilator should be there. So respiratory rate cannot be go below 20. Tidal volume should be 8 to 10. Pediatric RIRS outcomes, if you see, 76% is the lowest, 100% is highest. A lot of people are doing before we do. We should not think that we are the first person doing. Sepsis, you see the first slide, less than 1 year baby, if the TLC is if the TLC is more than 19,000, it is abnormal. Today you do surgery, suddenly 18,000, you should not think sepsis. Their normal TLC is raised. This slide is very, very important. How to assess the sepsis. Now this is how to, when in emergency, how to resuscitate the child. Without all this, if you just insert the scope, if you spend 1 hour and suddenly patient something happens, no use. Now coming to the guidelines, same, no difference. Adult, child, they are including now floods. Absolutely they are indicated. Now with this, I will show 3-4 videos where this is the 1-year-old female baby. Female is easy. See, I am dilating. This is not the direct dilator. It is an edited video. Once you dilate, this is the advantage. You use always rigid ureteroscopy, pass 2 guide wires. Over the 1 guide wire, you thread the sheath. Once you are inside, whether it is adult or child, your movements as told by Vikram, your method of laser as told by Vinith Gauhar, your accessories as told by Tanujpal Bhatia, and the principles as told by Deepak are all same. Nothing. Inside your movements. Only problem is if you don't have access sheath, movements will be restricted. Especially you don't have nothing to hold, like pen is long, pen is stretch, will not be there. In female, anyway, anything will not be there. And if you rotate at the pubic symphysis, it may not rotate. If you cannot rotate, you cannot do the stone. So ultimately you will fail. This is a 1-year male baby bilateral RIRS. This is why we have done bilateral. On the first left side we have done, it went easily. See, here I am going with ureteroscope. Access sheath, this is the stent. After the stent removal, we are trying to pass the access sheath. See, here I am passing over the access sheath and I am inside. Once inside, nothing. See, this is the laser. Initially, I have used a normal flexible scope. After that, other side, when I was doing, I used a digital scope. See, here I have used access sheath. 1-year baby. Because I came to know that the urethra is accommodable. After that, I used a digital scope. See, digital scope also can be used in 1-year male baby. This bilateral RIRS we have presented in World Congress Endourology, and because it is stented, all this accommodable. See the vision, no bleeding, unless the continuous water aspiration from the bladder is essential. This is a 5-year-old female baby where both homium and thulium, because it is a large stone. How can you do a large stone in a small child? Ureter and urethra male. So you have to do fast. See, this is a small external genitalia. You are putting a road runner. After that, you pass an access sheath because it is post-stented. Then see, flex C is going. This is 12/14 access sheath. Nice calcium oxalate monohydrate stone. Initially, you use the homium laser with high frequency, high energy, because stone will not get fragmented. We do only dusting, even pop dusting, as told by Vinith Gauhar, we do in the last. First only dust, because from first only if you do pop dusting, you will become ESWL. So first dust, and at the end, when the stone is wobbling, you make pieces and then go to the thulium. Thulium is very good for what? This is holmium only. This is holmium only. Now it has become pieces. Now you go to thulium. Always in children, take one piece for metabolic analysis. One piece, not many pieces. Time waste. So you now see the small pieces are there. If you leave it like that, they will grow. Now this is the thulium. In half minute or 1 minute, completely it will become powder. Completely it will become powder. So you need not worry if it is in the center. If it is in the ureter, you can worry. See, complete powder. The advantage of thulium is fine powder in the last. Advantage of holmium is fine powder in the beginning. So this is a 4 months baby. As the experience increases, you don't leave. This baby presented with anuria. Everybody asks why 4 months baby? Bilateral RIRS, anuria, creatinine raised, 2 stones in the ureter, 4 stones in the kidney, 4 stones in the left kidney, 4 in the right. Male patient. So 4 months. Yes, if the urethra is accommodable only, we will put it. Otherwise, why will you put it? If the ureter is accommodable only, see, guide wire is going with difficulty. You pass. You have to do some maneuvers like this stretching maneuver, and then you have gone inside. And then once you are inside, don't use any access sheath because 4 months will not admit any access sheath. Now I am going inside. Now the access sheath, see it is not going. This is a small kid. So what will you do? You put a ureteroscope rigid, stay for 5 minutes, listen a good song, then it gives a passive dilatation, then try once again. If it is not going, stop it. There is no point. Go for ESWL, PCNL, microperk, mini perk, etc. But it has gone. Once it has gone, FlexXC. Why FlexXC here? The difference between FlexXC and FlexX2 is is only one French. I thought I will pass that. It has gone easily. And it's academic case. When you have academic case, like Tanuj Pal Bhatia told, it is a beautiful vision. So these are the small stones which are, the stent passing is also difficult. 3.5 French, 16 centimeters. Once it is over, I have tried on the other side. Other side stent removed, other side 2 guide wires passed. Then other side, actually this is a bigger stone. In the upper ureter, it was not going. So there is difficult maneuver. See the maneuvers? During that time, you can lose the scope. So once you get some experience, then only you do it. Now it is inside. Once it is inside, be careful. Water should come out. And this is the stone. One in the calyx, deep calyx. Another was in one more calyx, which is coming out, going out. So I kept high frequency. It came out. Then see, this is a stone. And ultimately, the baby did well in the post-operative period. With 2 days we have kept with intensive care. We taken care of this baby. See, some amount of nephrogram is seen. See, you have to push the DJ stent. These are the small problems. See how much DJ stent is inside. This is the post-operative CT film. Some controversy. Why you have done CT? It is low doses CT only, and the child did very well. This is published in last month in Elsevier Articles Pediatrics. This is the smallest baby in the world to undergo bilateral RIRS. Now this is a deep inferior calyceal stone, 6 years girl, solitary kidney, anterior diverticular stone, very deep like this, deep inferior calyx. What will you do? You can do PCNL, you can do RIRS. You attempt one time RIRS. I went inside. This was in a Kolkata live conference. Now I have gone inside. I am seeing. I made a small mucosal breach. Then the stone is seen. Whenever see how much awkward movements are there here. So during this awkward movement, scope can break. So don't attempt initially. The trick here is don't try to make powder. Just now I told that powder. Here no powder. Pieces, and take out the pieces. Once the pieces are out, you can do whatever you want. That is this thing. Now this is kyphoscoliosis. Calcium oxalate. See how this is. There are people who died in PCNL in kyphoscoliosis on right side because IVC will come. This is calcium oxalate small stone. Even ESWL is very difficult. You just put one laser fiber, 5 minutes. This is an unedited video, not even 5 minutes. Finished. So post-tented, only one anesthesia, short GA, that too. Fentanyl plus propofol. Just 2 minutes and then the discharge within 6 hours. So you should not just say that one anesthesia, 2 anesthesia, 3, 4 times. Don't charge the patient. Why you want to charge 4 times? Then it is becomes easy. Now coming to the isolated renal anomalies, horseshoe kidney, it is like this. Small child, male baby, very difficult case. So when once you get experience, you go inside. This is post-tented. See how difficult this RGP for PCNL. No calyx is properly anterior, posterior, medial, lateral. Everything is like a cluster. So you have to go with difficulty inside, and then see the small penis, and once you go inside, stone is there. Then you powder. Once you see the stone, it is everything is okay. Now I kept the access sheath because initial water flow was not good. After that I did it. But after completing half, then I went inside with the digital scope, and one small stone like this was left behind and completely cleared. You should not do CT in all cases. Ultrasound is very sensitive. Children, we should not give radiation. See, post-operative film, no stone, no intravasation, no extravasation, no ischemic damage, same scope, same PCS. Now this is the baby. Now pediatric storage scope has come, which is short length, but no difference in the diameter. What is the advantage? You need not work out like laparoscopy working a kilometer away. You will be nearer to the external genitalia. You see, this is the smallest scope. Otherwise, diameter, look, everything is same. Only thing is that long length will not be there outside the small penis, so that you can operate close to the body. Then you will be happy. You have to be with open mind. This is my last slide and video. I was doing RIRS enthusiastically in this. Suddenly RGP I have done. It caused intravasation. So don't do. You should be well versed with this is after going to Trichy, after watching one day 12 surgeries of supine PCNL by Govindarajan, this Karthikeyan and Vikram, everybody, even Arun sir from Chennai, I was impressed. Since then I am doing only supine PCNL. This is the smallest child I kept in supine position because child difficult, 9 months. I did supine PCNL. Why? Because I am telling you should be very good in PCNL also. Don't say that I will never do PCNL. I don't know PCNL. Both are wrong. See, this small child, we went inside. Ureter was tight after this BGS stent removal. So I thought it is not a good case. Whenever ureter is like this, don't do it. Now what will you do? You put a ureteric catheter, do RGP. What we have done? RGP. With only 5 ml, intravasation has happened. 5 ml, not even 5 ml. See here, this is the last. See, immediately such a contrast, you will be unhappy. Either you put a stent and come out, or you do something else. So I thought, why not supine PCNL? 9 months baby. Then I punctured. This is the position. Here I am not going to talk about the supine PCNL, but in a pediatrics, ESWL is very good, but majority of the ESWL missions, you cannot put the bulb to the patient body easily. You have to separately buy it. Already it is 540 lakhs, 50 lakhs, 1 crore. Per child, again, yearly one case will come. How will you buy? So it is not practical. So see, this is a puncture. Once you puncture, everything is same. In children, kidney moves like anything. Almost it is going to the opposite side over the spine. So what we did, one person has kept a hand. Everything learned in conferences only. So all the juniors keep going to good surgeons conferences and keep learning. I have learned this only 3 months back. Because of my expertise previously in PCNL, I could do this. Now you go inside, dilate, coral starch, microperc, mini perc access, directly went inside like this. And once you are inside, the stone is nicely seen. It is small stone, small or big, you have to remove it. Patient has come for stone only. You take for 5 minutes. After that, no stitch, nothing. Just come out. No feeding tube, no stent, and ureteric. Nothing great to say. No stent, no feeding tube. A patient should not get fever. That is more important. So, but because surgery went, see, upper calyx is so nicely seen, and then upper compound calyx. Last 1 minute. Don't worry. Today anyway it is 6:15. Now this is another calyx, and this is the small. If you see here, this is the tube. And the nephrostogram should be clear, and the baby is doing very well. See, now we kept ureteric catheter and feeding tube, nothing else. After that, child post-operatively did very well. Post-op day 1 only we could discharge, but we discharged on post-op day 2. This is the picture on the post-op day 1. This is post-op day 1 with mother and myself. So be careful, select appropriately comparable SFR to PCNL, less hospital stay, less radiation, no major complication. I told no major complication. Immediately Mahesh Desai sir told, don't say like that. There are major complications like sepsis and ureteric stricture. I agree that I will change the slide in future. That's why I change it like this. Conclusion: requires technical skill, may require multiple session, longer operative time, need for pre-stenting. Then this slide is added after I was scolded by Mahesh Desai sir. So you have to choose carefully in difficult cases. Without the teamwork, you cannot do. Fortunately, I have two, total 7, 2 from Chennai, Dr. Hemnath and Dr. Soundarya, and rest of the team are very senior. Swami, Ramakrishna, Manas, Rakesh and Arjun. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. That was a wonderful presentation. It's like MS Dhoni coming in the slog over sitting a century. And I think most of the participants won't mind to take a few questions. So
yes, we are.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead with the question and answer session. So
yes.
Dr. Vikram's mic is on mute.
Yeah.
Keep it here.
I just want to ask, if someone is going to start a RIRS, which is the recommended scope? What scope he should buy?
I have to answer, no?
Okay. You want me to answer that?
Yeah, Tanush. Go ahead.
So, that is a very difficult question as such. What we usually advise is you should have one fiber optic scope,
okay,
and one digital scope, which can be a disposable or reusable one according to your choice. But one should have 2 scopes in your department at all the time. That's what I feel. Because, in a RIRS, suddenly, after maybe, even if you're an expert, and even if your scope lasts 100 cases, but sometimes even in your 10th case, the scope can get damaged, the fibers can get damaged. So you should have a standby scope at all the time. If you have a digital and a fiber optic, with digital you have the advantage of excellent vision, and with fiber optic you have the advantage of very good maneuverability and ease to pass in almost every case.
It's on.
So that's what I feel. You should have two scopes. One can have one fiber optic and one this one. Okay. All the scopes that I mentioned, especially the reusable digital and the fiber optic scopes, are excellent scopes. The ones that are available now. It's like the Hall of Fame of RIRS scopes. So one can choose any of those. They're all very good.
Oh, thank you. That was what Dr. Iqbal Shergill sir wants to know. And Dr. Ari Alauddin Maududi, he wants to know, is it always necessary to pre-stent the patient? Chandramohan sir, can you take that question?
Question is pre-stented.
Do you always pre-stent the patient?
Not necessary. If you pass 6 by 7.5 ureteroscope, if it goes easily, you don't need stent. You can use access sheath also. 6 by 7.5 ureteroscope if it goes easily. How many cases it goes? 70% easily. 20% not easily. Not easily stent. No active dilatation. 10% of the cases, you will think, I can go. Go, but stay with ureteroscope for 5 minutes so that it gets dilated. Don't go directly with access sheath. Second point, in those 10% where it is tight, use a new access sheath. It goes nicely. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think you have answered one more question in that thing. Like, when you are not able to pass the access sheet beyond the VUJ, what will be your strategy? So, is it always you stent? That's what I want to ask, but you already said if you're not going to stent, if you're not able to pass the access sheet, you will stent in case of difficulty.
No. There is one point. If you can engage the access sheath just 1 centimeter, rest of the ureter is okay. Even then it is for the assistant very difficult to hold. One time you can go, 8 mm is there, finish, come out. Again, if you come out, then you will do 2-3 times like this, then it will become edematous. You can 1 centimeter access sheath, but it cannot be stabilized by the assistant. It will come out into the bladder. Water will not come that easily. If it is rest of the ureter is tight, you will go into high pressure. So your judgment, initial 550 cases, don't do unnecessarily enky-fenky at the lower UVJ. It will form stricture. Do properly stenting, nicely tell the patient and do it. Once the experience comes, I need not tell, like any other ureteroscopy.
Vinit sir.
Yes, please.
Do you always counsel your RIRS patient for 2 sittings? Like this, when you are not able to pass the access sheet, what will you do? And do you always counsel the patient for multiple sittings before RIRS?
I think the answer to that question is better answered if you look at the anatomy before, look at the patient's body habitus, and also the fact that whether he was pre-stented or not post-stented, because stenting itself is one procedure. I never promise a patient that I can do an RIRS in the first sitting, even if he's stented. Even if they've been stented, somewhere when they come to me, I tell them we are only going to decide on table. So I actually, most of them now, I counsel them for ECRS because they want something to get them stone free that sitting. But for anybody who's starting out, if you tell your patient that you can do the surgery in the first sitting, I think you probably are giving them the wrong impression. Further, it's not about accessing the stone in the first sitting. You may be able to access it. You may still not be able to completely render it stone free because that's where the stone composition, the stone position, and everything else matters. But having said that, we have done a study. If you cross 500 cases, your stone free rate in the first sitting goes up very high, almost 95%. You get much more confidence. It's only after I finished my 800 and 850 cases that I'm now more confident of telling them in the first visit in the OPD how much of a success rate I can promise.
Thank you, Vinit sir. Thank you, Vinit sir. That means. Thank you, Vinit sir. I think the message is well clear. Before RIRS, always ensure that patient is ready for multiple sitings. There is a question from Dr. Kathamuthu. How to avoid a reduced snowstorm effect during fragmentation of calculus? Dr. Deepak sir, can you take it?
Yeah, no, I guess majority of the times you see the snowstorm effect provided the stone volume is on the larger side, and as you keep doing it halfway down the lane or the 3/4 of the stone is done, you see a lot of dust flying. And that's what we call a snowstorm effect. But majority of the times, if you keep close to the stone as much as possible, stay close to the stone, don't bother moving here and there, and corner the stone into a calyx at the end of a calyx, and keep the distance between the stone and the scope to the minimal. Majority of the times you'll be able to avoid it. But another trick of the trade is to use a bit of a contrast into the PCS where it will tend to settle down. Either bleed or even a lot of snowstorm effect can be settled if you use a bit of a contrast injected into the PCS. So these are the couple of tricks.
Thank you. I think there is a question from Dr. Bhargav Nandyal. What is the approximate cost of new disposable digital scopes? I myself will answer. It will be around 80,000 to 1 lakh, depending upon your negotiating capacity.
But the cost of the screen is extra.
Yeah,
the monitor. Yeah,
exactly.
It is significant.
Yeah, exactly. That is an answer which is not given by the trade people the first instance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dr. Sampath Kumar wants to know if the patient is on DJ stent. I think you have already answered. Culture will be positive, even then we have to take under cover, under antibiotic cover. This was answered in the chat session itself. Can anyone suggest which is more cost effective, digital flexible or the disposable flexible? Tanuj, you will be the right person, I think.
Again, what I would recommend in today's setting is that if you're planning to make a practice of RIR out of RIRs, that you're going to do a lot of RIRs, it is better to have one of fiber optic and one of the digital ones. Definitely major issue with the digital scope is the cost of repair. If it gets with the reusable, if it gets damaged, the cost of repair can be equal to a cost of a new fiber optic scope. So it is very, so now, we are evolving. Like, for example, we are trying to negotiate with the company to get a CMC of a digital scope. That's how we are comparing now. If they give us a CMC, we'll go for the reusable one. Otherwise, we'll go for the disposable one.
Oh, right. And
Karthikeyan?
Yes, sir.
One small point I wanted. If you have a trainees under you, like we have fellowship, if they break 5 lakh scope versus 70,000, it makes a lot of difference. Exactly. So if you have trainees, you are on a regular training basis, the disposable scope is very useful. Now I am finding it useful, to be honest.
Oh, nice. Sir Chandramohan, yeah.
Another point, Karthikeyan, is that if you are going to use for tumors, you have to have a digital scope. For that, and that's only a reusable scope. The hidden cost of a reusable scope, if you're doing more than 80 to 90 cases in your center within a month, is quite high. the hidden cost when I say sterilization, maintenance, etc. I would prefer to then use a disposable scope.
Yes.
That's a very valid point. And having said about sterilization, what is the way you sterilize your scope in between cases?
Generator.
I see. We are a teaching institute, and then we also have a high volume, so we use mainly disposable. For sterilization, for us, I think Cydex is still the most common one. Otherwise, like Vikram said, if I use the scope, I still make it a point to do exactly what Vikram did. I do it myself, and then I send it for sterilization to the central location. You handle the scope yourself.
Chandramohan sir, since your case turnover is going to be very fast every day, how do you sterilize? You use multiple scopes for each case?
I have multiple scopes, and now I have taken steroid large one, NX. So after that significant reduction, otherwise previously I used to use paracetic acid, that is Parasafe. That is okay if you do 2 or 3 cases. If it's single scope, if you do third case, even if you put in Parasafe for adequate time, I find that infections will go. So if you are a beginner, daily one case you do or 2 cases you do, so that in between they sterilize properly. First case you do, and then a 5th case you do. Don't do continuously 2 RIRS with the same scope or 3 with the same scope. I have steroid now, large one.
Karthikeyan, I just want to make a valid point here when you asked about the urine culture with what Chandra just said. It's now medical legally, if you use in a positive culture a reusable scope, you can be sued because the literature says use a disposable scope. So just keep that in mind, depending on your patient. Just keep that in mind.
Very good point.
That's a valid point. And how to reduce urosepsis during RARS? One of the most dreaded complications of RARS is urosepsis. How to reduce? How to keep your intrarenal pressure low? And Deepak sir, what's your take?
Yeah, about the urosepsis.
And the urosepsis and how to keep the intrarenal.
Yeah, so that's what like I've just highlighted in the presentation and aptly raised by one of the participants about the urine culture aspect. So primarily, clinically, you don't want the patient to be sick with features of pyelonephritis or, of course, sepsis, which is a straight away no. But to keep your urosepsis down, ideally, if there are any signs of infection, appropriate antibiotics for some time. Maybe stent them for a few. Pre-stenting is an ideal scenario.
Maximum size.
And the pre-stenting would also help you to admit in a larger access sheet, thereby keeping your intrarenal pressure on the lowest side. And choose your cases carefully as far as the stone volume is concerned, so that your operating time also goes down. So primarily, take care of the urine culture. Use an adequate urinary, access sheet to keep the pressures low. Keep the intrarenal pressure also low by keeping an eye on your the irrigation system. What you do, don't pressure in too much, and keep the operating time as minimal as possible. These are the few things to consider to keep the sepsis down.
I think Vinit sir is fond of Traxxer pump. What do you use for irrigation?
I strictly follow. I just use a Traxxer pump. It has 3 advantages. One is there's a bit of warming of the saline. The second thing is it's a very controlled pressure. It only raises the intrarenal pressure 15 millimeters every time you use the hand pump, and that's acceptable. The third thing is the pressure is gauged, so it goes from 80 to 90 to 100 in a very defined way. Unlike when you use, somebody may be strong, they can pump faster. Somebody is not such a strong person or not so experienced, and the way you use your syringe or the way you use your hand pump at times can very easily cause a calyceal perforation. And that's why a Traxxer pump, I feel, is really good. But again, foot pumps is the only thing which I would not advise to use. A hand pump can be used carefully, no matter what you have.
And I think in Trichy, we have a different method of irrigation. I call upon Dr. Vikram to explain the way how we use the irrigation.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can see you and hear
you. Yeah. Actually, what we do is we use a gravity irrigation basically, but most of the time we keep the irrigation closed. We give 1 shot of injection Lasix when we start to break the stone and keep the outlet of the scope open. This mainly works when we use a semi-rigid scope. to break larger renal pelvic stones. And we hardly end up using 500 ml of irrigation for one full stone, even 2 centimeter stones. We open the irrigation only when it is absolutely mandatory. Once we give Lasix, the urine produced continuously gives a washing of the dust, and that comes out through the channel itself. So that way we are coming out with a paper on that. That way we are able to keep the irrigation very low.
I think the point is you actually use your irrigation to only when you fire the laser. You don't need irrigation else otherwise. Because with the heat that's generated is what you want the temperature to be low. So Vikram is actually partly right. It's a nice paper actually, Vikram, if you come out with it.
Having said about the heat generation, I just have to ask this question. Do you feel using laser in ureter is unsafe? If it's so, how to prevent the laser-induced complications in ureter?
Can I answer that?
Yes, sir.
I just find because if you don't use a laser in the ureter and you use a pneumatic instrument today, you will cause more damage. Use a laser, but there are certain precautions you need to take. And the first important thing is your energy. Do not exceed beyond 1 joule in the ureter. Number 2, if the stone is impacted, try not to be heroic. Try to dust gently, slowly. You can't be fast. If you can't fragment the stone, even if it means coming back another day. So that's another point to take. Always go from the, like I said, if you go from the center to the periphery, not from the periphery to the center. We will be putting up the paper too. We drill a hole through. When you drill a hole through, it does 3 things. The irrigation flows through. The water is flowing in and out. There was a Japanese paper which showed, and also further then it came by from a Netherlands paper, that the microscopic dissection that the water causes to cause microabscesses is completely absent when you have flow across the stone or beyond the stone. So drill a hole through, let the water go through, and then reduce the flow rate. Bring it down to a measurable level which is not too fast, and then gently carry on with the stone. So use a laser. Don't use anything else.
So you have to use laser very cautiously in ureter, and that doesn't forbid us to use laser from in ureter. Is that right?
Yeah, I think use it caution. Yeah, and these are the precautions you take.
Excuse me.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Vineet, hi.
Hi.
So I strongly believe that making a hole in the center through and through more than 1.5 centimeter stone is not easy. Coring through is not easy. You will touch here and there mucosa, especially if it is a 200 micron fiber, it wobbles. I feel if the outflow is there, like for example, ureteric sheath, access sheath with ureteroscope, small ureteroscope, then whatever the water that comes out, fine, you do it.
No,
Otherwise, you use
think
pneumatic lithotripter first. If pneumatic lithotripter is not working, if it is stone is going up, let it go. After that, you do proper RIRS. This is my opinion.
Yeah. If you are counseling for an RIRS, and then I would rather push the stone to the kidney. Completely agree with you. And for a big stone, don't try anything heroic. Also agree with you. I thought this was just using your ureteroscope, normal ureteroscope and a laser. If you counsel, almost any stone which is above the iliac crest today, I tell the patient, you will have to pay for
RIRS.
flexible ureteroscopy.
RIRS.
That is the bottom line.
Yeah, very good. Very good point.
Very valid point, sir. And a few more questions, and then we'll finish it up fast. And what is the strategy to negotiate the upper ureteric kinks during flexible ureteroscopy? Tanuj, I think you can take this. Tanuj?
Yeah, there are a couple of ways, and it's majorly just like we do in our, semi-rigid ureteroscopy. You can try passing 2 guide wires. You can take the ureteroscope there and pass a guide wire. You can use a rigid guide wire. Once your guide wire is gone, you can pass a ureteric catheter, and then you can pass a rigid guide wire. I have seen some experts, including Dr. Traxer, only last month, actually managed to use a flexible ureteroscope to negotiate that kink and go into the pelvis. But that's only for very high level experts, I would say, because when we have tried to do that, we have ended up perforating or causing more damage. And then there are those maneuvers of lifting the kidney, and all of us know.
And last few questions. And what is the level of access sheet? What is the level at which the access sheet to be kept? And I think if you need to keep at the upper ureter, need not go up to the pelvis. If it doesn't go, at least wherever level it goes, just beyond the VJ is enough. I think most panelists will agree.
Yeah, but one difficulty, and I had that difficulty in a case today itself. I'll tell you that if the sheath is just slid into the lower ureter, and this was a 35 centimeter sheath, I mean, in a male patient, problem was that the scope was just at the entry point of the sheath. So your left hand movements become very much restricted. So better to take out the sheath and go sheathless, or use a thinner sheath.
Exactly. Valid point.
I think,
And,
can I add
yes,
to that
sir.
point, Karthikeyan?
Yes, sir.
Tanuj's point is valid. If you take theory, the paper which came out from Amsterdam showed you keep your access sheet 1 centimeter below the PUJ. The flow rate is better. Maneuverability of the instruments is better because if you push it too much inside, you actually are closing the PUJ and the water flow is not that good. Secondly, your ability, like Vikram showed you, that movement of your hand in and out is okay, but moving the scope, deflecting it up and down is very, very restricted. And you will never be able to get to the lower pole. So I would prefer to have the access sheet a centimeter or two below the PUJ, and the drainage is better as well. And the maneuverability, you get full movements of your scope. And in pediatrics, I think, Chandra, it's really important where you place your access sheet.
I strongly agree. Access sheath insertion is more important is ureter distensibility and water coming out. If you keep little low, I keep in the lower end as a matter of fact, water anyway will come down. If the ureter is very snugly fitting with scope, it won't come. So if the access sheath is 2 centimeter below, it is always better. 100% you should not be closer to the pelvis. Your movements will be decreased.
Valid point, sir. And I just want to ask Dr. Vikram, what is the tips to do RIRS under spinal anesthesia?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we have been doing RIRS under spinal anesthesia from the beginning, right from the beginning. The first 50 cases, we were doing it under general anesthesia. After that, it has been only spinal anesthesia. The level is little above than what the anesthetist regularly gives for a ureteroscope. We have done all the stones, pelvic stones, upper calyceal stones, ECIRS under spinal anesthesia. We have not had problems. There was no stage where we had to convert from spinal to general anesthesia for want of more time. It gives us adequate time to finish a case, and it is cost effective. I think Chandramohan sir would agree with me. We had demonstrated it in our workshop also.
Yeah, I agree. But a small this thing, if you wanted to do in children, or if you wanted to demonstrate powder till the end faster, sometimes large stone and children GA is better. Anesthetist and patient cooperation is little bit required. If you are using high energy, sometimes high energy if touches infundibulum, it may bleed. Otherwise, I agree. Now, for poor patients, when I am doing at low cost, I am doing under spinal. In India, you should never say that I can never do under spinal. It is very much possible.
Vikram, you know that Vikram made that point during his live presentation in Trichy, that he actually turns the monitor to the patient and asks the patient to hold his respiration. I use that now, 2 or 3 cases recently, and I find that patients are very cooperative. They actually quite enjoy watching that. So that was a good trick that you taught me that.
But some people misunderstand and take deep breathing. Then your fiber will go into.
Our North Indian patients, suddenly they'll wake up from the slumber and they'll start breathing more rapidly.
More. They'll breathe more. When you say stopping, they'll breathe more. Then if you shout, that doesn't look nice.
Now COVID time is changing us, but even for upper ureteric stones, I prefer.
Yeah, COVID time, Vikram, I must tell, COVID time, spinal anesthesia is 100 times safer.
I will finish with the one last final question, sir. What is the minimum time we require before taking for RIRS after pre-stenting?
There's no debate. It's 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
That's good enough.
No debate.
Okay.
For 12 days.
You can, if you're giving tamsulosin, they actually tell you 1 week is also enough.
Okay.
But if you fail again, third attempt, it will be. Patient will never come back to you.
That was an excellent team performance, excellent discussion. All good things have to come to an end. I thank all the wonderful participants for spending so much of their time. I thank all the participants, the 91 participants who stayed with us until the end. Thank you, everyone. Thank
We
you.
thank you, Karthikeyan, for coordinating the whole
you.
of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.